Haven't done a layout update in a while, and it's about 1:30 in the morning. And for some reason, I decided now will be a good time to film a new one. So anyway, here's what's new on the layout. The big thing here has been a lot of terrain. So I guess I'll start over here. The first thing here is this hill. This is looking at at the west end of Brockton here, the modeled area of Brockton. And before, oh, this is always here. This overpass is always here. When it came down onto this plywood area, this piece of plywood just kind of ended here. And it was rather abrupt, where it just went flat and went straight up into a hill. And I was looking at some prototype pictures like I often do in my free time. Like I really only do in my free time. It's my only activity I do is look at prototype pictures. And there's a photo taken from the west end of Brockton, the west end of Brockton of a train heading west out of Brockton here. Taken from right about this angle. And in that photo, you can see there's a small embankment along the side of the tracks, on the right side of the tracks here to the right of the frame. And I decided to model that. And I was doing some more research. I realized that embankment was actually part of the Penske yard. Penske had a small engine servicing facility here off of their Chautauqua branch. And in the photo, it looks like they had a little ramp they could shove coal hoppers up to, and they could like a truck dump almost. To, I guess, to load coal tenders or something. But anyway, the hill was right up, or the ramp was right up along to the nickel plate main, and so the little embankment that truck was built on butted up right against the nickel plate. And so that's where this scene kind of comes from. Did not have enough room, obviously, to model the Penske yard, but I did include the hill. And I like having this here for a couple of reasons. Number one, it just creates a little more visual interest. Watch trains go by, just, a little more hills. It breaks up this scene coming down off of this hill. It's not quite as flat. And it also just generally removes the flat look that I'm really trying to avoid in this layout as much as possible. So there really isn't that much. I have this plywood here, but this will be covered up with stations and, little railroad crossing and other stuff. So it should hopefully kind of cover it up, but trying to minimize it as much as I can. This hill helps that. And it also helps convey distance between the Chautauqua branch here, where these coal hoppers are sitting, and then the nickel plate main where the engine's sitting at. So I think having this hill here just kind of creates a little bit more distance, and it doesn't look like the Penske just kind of turns and goes off the layout. It looks like it's actually going somewhere, even if it's really not that far of a distance, but it helps that a lot. And actually, as I look through this on the video screen, I'm thinking about I might add a little bit something in this area too, kind of following the tracks. I'm not really, it's like kind of like an awkward angle there. But yeah, this looks a lot better. If we go over to the east side of Brockton, this is the other scene I'm working on. And I touched a little bit on this in the last video I did, that little terrain video. If you remember before, this scene was originally an underpass. Different underpass. I was modeling one outside of Erie, PA. And for a variety of reasons I've touched on in previous videos, I decided to rip that all out and redo it. So I have these tunnel portals here. These are 3D printed, custom design, and then 3D printed by my brother. They look really good. There's one on each side, one over here. You can kind of see it, one on that side as well. And when I put these in, the existing terrain I had was not going to work with this. I ended up redoing all the terrain over here. And I think it looks really good. This is all based off of prototype photos, so it's pretty close to what the real thing looks like. So really from about like this corner down all the way over to the plywood over here, this is all new on both sides of the tracks. And yeah, it's looking pretty good. So I see I have the lattice on, you see on both here, right? I have it latticed up, and then I have the plaster cloth down. The next step here is going to be the sculpt and mold. I went out last week looking everywhere for sculpt and mold, and nowhere had it. So I should either buy it online or go to one of my local, or try another local store and see if they can get it somewhere, because I'm really anxious to get the sculpt and mold in and continue working on the layout, because it's really close. I mean, I have the sculpt and mold and I can move on, but I think generally this scene's looking really good. Again, it's all based off of prototype photos. There's a photo on the nickel plate archives of a Berkshire going eastbound, going across the scene this way, and you can see the tunnel portals in. It's taken from right about this angle, and it looks really good. And it also creates a little more visual interest once trains running through, even from the regular viewing point, which is about here, or for videography and photography, we're kind of down at the layout. It just provides a lot more visual interest. This will look even better when it's all weathered, or it's all completed. I mean, the only thing I'm not really a fan of are these tunnel portals and the color I painted them. I painted this, they're kind of painted like a flat gray right now. Does not really emulate the concrete look I'm going for, but apparently I've seen other people use like a Krylon spray paint, like a khaki color, So I might try that out. I do want to pull these off and just repaint them. As you can see, they kind of got beat up from doing the plaster cloth and stuff. So I'm thinking I'll probably put the sculpting mold on, and then pull them off and repaint them. Or, I don't know, my brother's up for it. I wouldn't mind having a new fresh set painted, or a new fresh set made, so I could just repaint them and they'll just look a lot better. So, but overall, even if they're stand-ins, whatever they are right now, they still look a lot better than having nothing here. So it's coming along. So if we continue going westbound here in the layout, over here, not too much has changed over here, but there are a few minor differences. The first thing I did was I redid some of the sculpting one. I brought it right up to the edge of the ties here. So I covered up most of the road bed on the fast track. So see over here, I haven't done it yet. You can see where I covered it up. And I did this because I think it'll make it easier when I go back to ballast all this. As I've said before, I do intend on ballasting in between the ties, as well as off to the side, of course, like on the real railroad. And this will just help it. I think this will make it just a little bit easier. And it's just, I don't know, it just looks better to me. I'm happier with it. Other thing here is to notice it's all painted. In previous videos, this was all white. So it's, well, I should say it's all painted. It's partially painted. It's painted from like over here, and you can see over to this side. I purposely left a couple areas clear, or I did not paint a couple areas. Number one is over here. This is left white because I want to put another layer of sculpting mold over this. And as I said before, I'm out of sculpting mold, so I need to put more sculpting mold on it to kind of bulk it up. But right now it's a little bit thin, and then I need to put sculpting mold all over here. So I haven't painted that because there's no point. I'm going to cover it back up with more sculpting mold anyway, and of course can't paint that yet. Then the other reason is, if you look here, you kind of see it has a very hard edge going. You can kind of tell here from my hand over. You can kind of see how it's like very stark over that. That was a mistake I made when I initially made this scene. There is cardboard underneath there, like a big strip of cardboard just like this here, that kind of separates the two strips. So I have strips coming this way, connect up to it, and the strips coming off of the cardboard, the big sheet of cardboard going down towards the tracks. And again, this was the first scene I did, and you can kind of see here how it creates a very hard outline. You can clearly see where the cardboard strip is there. It's very obvious, and it looks very unnatural. This has bothered me really since I've done it, since I built this. It's kind of bothered me. So I'm thinking about doing is just ripping all this off, making this outside like fascia higher, and then relatticing it so it's flat across. You see, when I went over and did this scene over here, I didn't make that mistake again. So I learned from my mistakes and made this look a lot better. That's the worst part about improving and stuff, is improving in things, is you improve over here in this other part of the layout, but then it doesn't really match and it makes this look even worse. So I'm probably gonna rip all this off and just redo this. That's why I haven't painted it yet, because there's no point painting it if it's gonna get covered back up. But yeah, I mean, it looks like from over here, it looks okay. But you can even still see kind of the lip over there. And I think it's especially noticeable when you kind of view it from over here. You can just kind of see it. And it's enough to bother me, and I want it to look good. So I'm probably gonna go ahead and redo that. So that's why it's not painted. And then continuing a little bit further west over here, this is probably the biggest change of the layout, or the biggest progress of the layout here has been at my lift bridge scene. I got this lift bridge in, I did a video on it a while ago. I got this lift bridge in, God, probably 2 months ago at this point, back in April. And for a while, I just kind of had it jerry rigged in here. Didn't look very good, but it was enough to get the trains to run across it. The layout was semi-functional. But just recently, I decided I was sick of it. I'm just really trying to get more layout work done overall. And this was the last thing I needed to do as far as the terrain and the lattice and stuff. So I just kind of battened down and did it. And I'm happy I did, because this whole scene obviously looks a lot better now when there's actual scenery here. So the first thing I did was actually underneath on the base here. You'll see here the skeleton made out of 1x3s rests right up against the other set of 1x3s in the main table here. This was kind of, I guess, an oversight when we were building this layout. It didn't anticipate to have the bottom of the river so close to the bridge, the gap so small, because it is a lift bridge, so the gap should be small. So, you know, it makes sense of the bridge to lift and make room for the big lake boats and whatever else is passing under here. Anyway, I didn't really compensate for that. So this is as high as it could go. So when I put the plywood on, the gap was still quite larger than I wanted it to be. I think it was a scale, probably about 40 to 50 feet. Which is higher than I wanted it to be. It just looked too tall, and the bridge is too short. It was very unproportional, didn't look good. So what I ended up doing here was I raised up the plywood here. I put in a couple more 2x4s. You see just 4 2x4s under the corner here. I raised it up, so now it's level with, probably better, you see it better over here. Now it's level with the top of the 1x3 on the main table. And now the gap is closed up quite a bit, and it looks a lot better. So a little oversight, but whatever, it's corrected. Once I get an actual face on here, you won't even notice. And even now, it's not really that big of a deal, but it looks a lot better like this. So you can see I went ahead and I did the lattice here on both sides, both edges of the river. And you also notice in some areas the lattice is attached to foam, and that's done on purpose. I had some pink foam, and I cut it here, just do the shape. And that is going to be the modeling, or that's going to model how they dredge the river in real life to allow the lake boats to pass through. The lake boats obviously they sit pretty deep in the water. And so they dredge it out. And so a lot of times we'll see, at least in the prototype photos, the Black River in the rain, which is what the area that I'm modeling here, they have it's dredged out and they have steel ribbing along the sides of the river. So that's what I'm going to model here. I'll put steel ribbing over top or in front of the foam there. It should look pretty good. Over here, I left this open. Today there appears to be some kind of a stone facility, kind of almost comes right down to the shoreline, right down to the water. So I'm going to do something like that. This was a very industrial area in the area that I'm modeling. They had a big shipyards was over on this side of the tracks, and they had a steel mill and all kind of stuff. Today, that's all gone. It's either disappeared and is now tourist areas in the case of the shipyards, or it's all abandoned in this case of the steel mill. So not too much here goes on. And today, I mean, obviously I really can't model much of what was there in that time period just because of the space I have. I only got about 4 feet across, or 2 feet across, sorry, for room. So I'm kind of limited with that, but I'm kind of modeling. I'm gonna do probably a hybrid of what it's like now and what it was like back then, given what I can do here. So kind of going back to what I was saying before, I have not painted any of this because I need to put the plaster on and then lattice all of this. And also you notice over here, this big gap. Don't worry about that. That's done on purpose. Another early mistake when I was doing scenery, when I put the cardboard on and I put the strips on and the plaster and everything, it actually made the cardboard bow in a little bit. So this cardboard was actually bowing in so much that it was coming off of the 1x3 underneath. So I just pulled that off and put a new piece in, and I'll just put some plaster cloth over here and more sculpted mold, and you won't even notice. I actually did the same thing over here. So this is actually just, there's no lattice underneath this very edge here because of the same thing it was bowing in. So it looks a lot better now. And you also notice here the bridge is sitting below the track level. That is also done on purpose right now because I have my brother's has some 3D printed bridge piers that he designed. I just need printed out. And they're 3D printed and designed based off of the real bridge piers at the real bridge that's here at Lorraine. So you see it's just temporarily held up by some foam. The bottom here, this is going to stay. I'll do the same thing with the concrete or the steel ribbing on the side of the base here. But the piers will be 3D printed. They should look a lot better. This bridge will look really good. And aside from that, all this terrain, not too much is new on the layout. This is my Lorraine area. It's just kind of staging. And then over here, nothing has changed. It's what it was before, the lake scene. Again, it just needs all of the sculpted mold paint. So really the next steps for the layout is after I finish all the paint across the entire layout, my plan is to go through and put dirt down, and I plan to sift real dirt and put all the real dirt down. Then I can go through ballasting and then going from there. I haven't really thought much more beyond ballasting. I think the dirt and ballasting is going to take up a lot of time on its own. So really trying to get a lot of progress done. I've been just more inspired to come down here lately and grind out some more work. I'm sick of running trains on a flat plywood board or plywood central, if you will. It's even now, it's more fun to watch trains running through even somewhat completed scenery. But the layout's been in that somewhat completed scenery stage for quite a while, so I'm ready to move on and really get it looking good. And it's a fun little hobby, something to come down here and do after I finish work or something. And summer break too, I have a lot more time than I would during the school year and such. So anyway, that's kind of the current status of the layout. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you're looking forward to seeing more of the progress, specifically over in this area. I'm really hoping to get this done soon. But anyway, for now, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.